A truck bomb killed at least 76 people and injured at least 50 others in the Somali capital of Mogadishu. The blast happened at a busy security checkpoint during the morning rush hour, sending a plume of thick black smoke across the city. There has been no immediate claim of responsibility, although a group with ties to al-Qaeda often carries out attacks like this. Government spokesman calls the blast one of the deadliest in Mogadishu in recent memory.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to introduce to you Emeritus Professor of Physics, Emeritus Dean of Engineering, Emeritus Provost of Cornell University, and Emeritus President of Cornell University, Dale Corson, who will introduce Carl.
Professor Terzian, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce Carl Sagan for his lecture, The Age of Exploration. Dr. Sagan first crossed my consciousness one day in 1967 when Professor Thomas Gold, chairman of our astronomy department at the time, came to my office. I was university provost at the time, to tell me about Carl Sagan, promising young astronomer at Harvard, whom Tom said he thought we could get. He told me that Sagan was a brilliant planetary scientist, and furthermore, he had a great ability to tell the lay public in understandable terms what astronomy and science are all about. This latter particularly caught my attention. It represented a unique ability, and we needed more of it in the university. I responded that this seemed like a good opportunity, and why didn't he make an offer? Professor Gold said he had no money, and that I would have to provide the funds. Now, this is a game that every entrepreneurial department chairman tries to play. But I didn't dismiss Gold as quickly as I might have some people. I'd known Tom for a long time. I'd been chairman of the search committee that brought him to Cornell, also from Harvard. Harvard's a good recruiting ground. Tom's always been an exciting person to have around, with more ideas per second than anyone else, and I've always enjoyed talking with him. He has ideas about everything. The expanding universe, how to ride a unicycle, pulsars, Carl Sagan. But there's a problem. Sometimes his ideas are wrong. On the theory of riding the unicycle, for example, I think he never learned. But usually he's right. He was right about pulsars from the first moment. He told me that if I put up the money to hire Carl Sagan, I would never regret it. I did put up the money, the offer was made, and Carl came to Cornell, and I have never regretted it. Tom was right. You already know all the great things Carl has done the past quarter century, although you may not appreciate all the solid science he has done. You can take my word for that. I've always been grateful to Carl for his willingness to talk to alumni groups and to other lay groups. When I was president, I asked him to do this billions of times when I could find him. And he always said yes. He did hesitate once when it was a black tie affair in Chicago, but when I explained the importance of the occasion, he accepted.
I've been looking for an email to come through from an organization that I've been in communication with. I just checked all of my regular emails. I checked my spam. There was nothing in there, so I just went and deleted all the spam that I had all the way back to like fucking September. There was a couple thousand emails in that shit, in my spam folder. But I guess I haven't gotten this notification that I'm looking for, so I'll try to contact these people on Monday. Like, yo, motherfuckers, said you was gonna send me an email with the links that I need, but you didn't. I'm a procrastinator, but I hate when other people procrastinate. Just do what you said you was gonna do. I need to shave my mustache. My damn mustache hairs are curving up into my nose. Yo, good morning, guys.
I think he rather liked the black tie part of it, and I'm not sure he ever returned the rented tuxedo. Maybe that's why he's never been able to go back to Chicago. Carl has received more honors and awards than I could possibly relate. Let me limit this reference to reading the citation for one of his recent honors, the Public Welfare Medal of the National Academy of Sciences, the Academy's most prestigious award. For his ability to communicate the wonder and importance of science, to capture the imagination of so many, and to explain difficult concepts of science in understandable terms. That says it all. Carl Sagan, Age of Exploration.
Thank you, Dale. I never knew that Tommy hit you up for my salary. Grateful to you both. It's true that Tommy Gold recruited me for Cornell. I remember the inducements, a very small and exceptionally good astronomy department, superb ancillary departments in physics, chemistry, and biology, a beautiful campus.
Well.
Laboratory facilities, which were, by some standards, very generous. But still, I hesitated. And I remember Tommy made the final inducement, I think knowing full well what he was doing. He took me on a little trip to Upper Enfield. And I thought, my goodness, here is a national park as exquisite, well, it's not really a national park, here is something as exquisite as any national park I've ever been in, and it would be right on my doorstep, and that is the missing ingredient. And Tommy was extremely persuasive on every level of inducement, and I thank him very much for the invitation. I've lived now in Ithaca longer than I have lived in any other place in my life, and I'm extremely grateful to Cornell and the town of Ithaca. I consider this my true roots.
Ithaca, New York.
I didn't know what it was I was going to talk to you about tonight, and so I tried to pick a topic which was sufficiently broad and ambiguous that whatever I thought I would talk about would fit. However, what I've decided to talk about doesn't fit. Well, maybe it does. We humans have had civilization only for about 10,000 years. Our species is a few 100,000 years old. Our genus, the genus Homo, is a few million years old. And therefore, for the vast bulk of our tenure on Earth, we were something other than sedentary. And the word has such an aura of self-congratulation, civilized. What were we? We were hunters and foragers. We wandered in small, itinerant, extended families, and our knowledge of the hunter-gatherer lifestyle is due to a few courageous and far-seeing anthropologists who went and lived with the few remaining hunter-gatherer groups before they were finally and utterly destroyed by civilization. The anthropologist from whom I learned the most about hunter-gatherers is actually here with us, Richard Lee of the University of Toronto. He studied a people, the Kung San of the Kalahari Desert in the Republic of Botswana. And I want to just give a little flavor about my understanding of our ancestors from Richard Lee's study of the Kung San. I want you to know I practiced before the mirror for about half an hour. The first thing that I think is very important is that they are highly technological. The technology is wood and stone and domestication of fire technology, but it's absolutely technology. And there are experts and other people who are not quite as good at the technology. But not only are they technological for fun, they are technological because their lives depend upon it. Chipping and flaking stone tools back before they had a little trickle of metal into their economy is very difficult to do, and of course they did it superbly well. And the archaeological and anthropological record is clear that we were technologists all the way back to the beginning. So the idea that science and technology is something new, something unusual, something we can even find books that say not really very human, is completely backwards. Technology is, if anything, the most characteristically human activity, although, as I'll mention later, It is not exclusively a human activity. Now, one very interesting insight, I thought, is hunter-gatherer tracking techniques. A small group with their bows and poisoned arrows and digging tools and a few other lightweight technological contrivances is following the game. They come near a stand of trees. They take one close look at the ground. Immediately, they know how many animals went by, what their ages and sexes were, how long ago they passed. This one is lame in the back left foot. At the pace they're going, we should be able to overtake them in another 2 hours if we hurry. Now, how do they know all that? In fact, what do they notice in order to follow the game on which their lives pretty well depend? One thing is a hoof print. Different animals have different characteristic shapes of their hooves. Different size animals leave different size hoof prints. But the decay of the hoof crater, the falling of pebbles in, the collapse of the raised rims, debris blown into it, tells you age. And in fact, it reminds me of nothing so much as determining ages of planetary surfaces by looking at how fresh the impact craters are. I think the reason that studying cratering physics seems so natural to us is because we've been doing it for 1 million years. They also know that herd animals in the hot sun like to avoid the sun. If there is a shadow on the ground.
It's good. Good morning. Good morning. In here listening to your boy Carl Sagan, astronomer, astrophysicist from the 80s and 90s. Most memorable for he did a TV show back in the day called The Cosmos, where he just like broke down a lot of different scientific theories and understanding it. Shit was just like a cool ass space science show. Now, your boy Neil deGrasse Tyson does a very similar show to The Cosmos, which talks about how stars are created, how stars die, entropy, the laws of physics, thermodynamics, and things like that. What is a black hole? Can we see a black hole? Can we travel through a black hole? If we travel through a black hole, what's on the other side? What is a wormhole? Can a wormhole be created? What is the fabric known as space-time, and how does gravity work? And so the series would go over like all these different concepts and ideas and just try to break it down in layman's terms so everybody can kind of understand what the physicists are, or the problems that they're dealing with. Yo, The Cosmos, I'm telling you, yo, that shit was good. I used to love all the science shows. There was this one show called Nova. Y'all ever watched that? That shit used to come on PBS. I used to watch Nova, The Cosmos. Now, a lot of people remember Bill Nye the Science Guy, but who remember Mr. Wizard? Y'all ever watch that show? Mr. Wizard? He was on I think that was on Nickelodeon, on the old Nickelodeon back in the day. And then there was this other science show, yo. But like that was just my shit, yo. Like I've always been on the science shit. Quantumly, like transfer data on a quantum level. Yeah, when one particle moves, the other particle does exactly the same thing, no matter the distance or space in between them, because of the entanglement. It's like the, it's in two places at one time, yo. That's why they're trying to build these quantum computers, and they think the quantum computer is what will give give rise to a fucking a real AI, yo, like a thinking machine. Qubit. Yo, that's some crazy shit, yo. First it was the Higgs boson. Now these motherfuckers is teleporting shit.
Finally been done successfully. Super exciting, but it is quantum, which means we didn't teleport a thing per se, but some data.
I didn't.
Basically, Chinese scientists beamed photons from the ground to a satellite orbiting above the Earth, then they messed with them using quantum entanglement. Entanglement we've talked about before. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, and it happens when you have two particles, usually photons, that are created together. They're like twins, and their twinning can stretch across space and time, like me and Mark Ruffalo.
That's not like a news update about science. That's something else I used to listen to too. If you NPR is cool, yo. It's just mostly news, but if you listen to NPR, they have Science Fridays, and they have all different kind of scientists on the show on Fridays, and just talk about all kind of shit, yo. Goddamn chemistry, biology, uh, archaeology, anything with an ology on the end of it. They'll get somebody up in there to talk about that shit. And then I was looking at something like a couple years ago called quantum locking. It's like a way to fucking make shit levitate using like super chilled fucking pieces of metal that are coated with some kind of Teflon shit or something. I don't know, but that shit was looking crazy as hell. Yo, look that shit up. Quantum locking. And I stepped on this shit last night. I came up here to grab something out of the studio. That shit was on the floor. Yo, fuck my N1 socks up, son. That shit ain't gonna come off, man. Damn, yo, I like these socks too. Now I gotta go get another pack of these motherfuckers, yo. And then I don't wanna put it in the wash with other shit until this shit dries up, cause that paint is gonna get on everything. I just leave it up here. Damn. Step right on the paint. I don't know why I left this shit on the floor. And then I still just put it right back on the floor. You know what? I need to fold this motherfucker closed. Yes, them superconducting metals, yo. That fucking quantum locking. But that shit look wild as fuck, yo. Anti-gravity shit. I'm telling you. They on some anti-gravity shit, bro. Because the quantum is just a small packet of whatever, yo. And we're beginning to be able to manipulate different things on a fucking, you know, molecular scale, yo. That shit is getting wild as fuck. And like they say that quantum computing, if they can figure that shit out, and so it's just not ones and zeros, it's ones and zeros and then a 1 and 0 at the fucking exact same time. So you got it's weird like how they explain that shit, but it's if they can figure that shit out and have use quantum computing to make a neural net, fucking Matrix, son. Yo, we in the fucking Matrix, bro. We right around the corner from all this shit. Like we are really, really, really living at that extraordinary time, yo. Like in a way, this is like Back to the Future. Basically, it just got here. It came like 20 years later. But flying cars, like if you really want a flying car, like really, really want one, you can get one. It ain't nothing but a big ass fucking drone. You can you can design, order, and make you any kind of flying car really if you wanted to. Self-driving cars, those are here. Talking to your computers and holograms and VR and touch screens, like all this shit is here, yo. And it's advancing at an exponential rate because it's a tier system, and we have thousands of years of information and understanding to build off of. And so now the time that we can create and conceptualize new ideas and new technology is getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And so it'll technology will ramp up so fast in the next century or so that things will be developed the day of that it's needed. Like all the little problems that we can't figure out, like it won't be a problem to figure shit out. And people are saying that's what we need, this god-like artificial intelligence to help us figure out how not to kill each other, how to help uh, people not starve to death, and like how to cure all diseases. But yo, D1, what's good, bro? Good morning. Good morning. It's as I say, right now, this is a very, very intriguing and important part of history that we're living in. It's kind of like when the pyramids were being built. You know what I'm saying? Like throughout that process, and people are actually seeing this thing being erected who probably wouldn't live to see it finish. The older people, and it's like fuck, we're doing something great right now. Shit is changing, yo. We're changing some shit right now. And in this fourth industrial revolution, this digital age, um, this seeking of the singularity is right here, bro. Like motherfuckers can taste that shit. Motherfuckers can taste it. They say, uh, they say these motherfuckers did use quantum entanglement to do what now? To transfer data. I like typed that shit. Well, I didn't Google it. I typed it in YouTube and I didn't find any news clip. But let me Google this shit. Not the peanut butter. Has that earthy taste. The last beer, shit. Bullshit. Physicists just transferred quantum data between different materials for the first time, December 8th, 2017. Physicists quantum transfer at the push of a button, Science Daily, June 14, 2018. Data transmission is the backbone of modern something, and it cuts out right there. Quantum teleportation is a process in which quantum information, e.g. the exact state of an atom or photon, can be transmitted exactly in principle from one location to another with the help of a classical communication and previously shared quantum entanglement between the sending and receiving location. Non-technical summary, protocol, experimental results, and data. That shit is interesting though. If you guys haven't studied anything with quantum in front of it, just type some shit in, quantum entanglement, quantum computing, quantum locking. Like this shit is very, very interesting, yo.
Deviate from their path to just run through the shadow a little bit. Well, where the shadow is depends on where the sun is. And therefore, when you see the deviation, you know that there had to be a shadow at that spot when they pass. Well, where in the sky does the sun have to be in order to cast that shadow? Oh, it was 11 o'clock this morning. Now, I don't claim that every contemporary, well, there are none, but back 10, 20 years ago, every contemporary Kung Sun made a scientific calculation, did the trigonometry of the angle of the sun. That's not what it's about. This is tradition. Each generation taught the next.
Yeah, I think they said they're just doing like mostly calculations and fucking number crunching and shit right now for the next couple years. They say they really haven't done anything in the past 3 years, but I think China is building a hadron collider that's gonna be like twice as big as the one in fucking, where is that shit at? Switzerland? Yeah, motherfuckers with that particle smashing shit, yo. I still remember I typed that shit on the internet on Facebook one time. I said I slap a motherfucker so hard I'll make a Higgs boson. Nobody laughed at that shit. I was like, damn guys, it's a funny science joke. Like, you know how hard, you know how fast your hand gotta be moving? You know how hard you have to hit something to make a... Never mind, you guys don't get it. Anyway. Nobody laughed at it. You get it? You get it? It's a joke. Never mind. You know all the slapping jokes. I slap you in the next week. I slap you so hard, your kids will feel it. I slap you so hard, I'll make a Higgs boson. Silence. Crickets. Choo, 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 choo. Like, damn. But hey, people don't know what the fuck funny is, you know what I'm saying? Nobody knows what funny is. That joke was hilarious. Yeah, because you have to think abstractly. And it's weird, like, people are just lost in thought. They're just like in this thought limbo where they don't really want to think concretely and fucking logically, but then you don't want to think abstractly either. And it's like, how the fuck do you think? Like, what the fuck do you think about other than uh, trap music and fucking reality shows? Like, you're at this fucking numb ass nowhere brain wave, and it's just like, that's weird and scary. You don't like art, you don't like fucking science. But most people do like I think everything is art. Everything. Even science is art. But everybody likes art. You just like, you like the art that people tell you you should like. Man, once you go into your inner self and start trying to figure out how this shit work on the inside, almost everything outside look mundane until you try to look at the microcosm and macrocosm. And then once you understand that shit, you gotta go back inside yourself again and start pondering this shit like, what the fuck? Well, what does that mean? Like, quantum entanglement. So if these two particles, and I manipulate this one, and this one behaves in the same way, I don't fucking But some people like not to think, and to each their own. Boy, my eyelashes be bugging. And ain't even like no wind blowing or I'm squinting or nothing. I'm just blinking regularly and then the eyelash just like bing. Open your eye, nigga. Open your eye. It's like, what the hell, bro? What'd you do that for? Out of nowhere, just crazy ass lash, just like bop, right in your fucking pupil. Yo, the length of body hair always just confused me too, like, cause, and on some people it's different, but in general, generally speaking, for every human, no matter what race you are, like the hair in your head is normally where the longest hair grows, right? And then some men can grow a really, really long ass beard. Why don't your eyebrows just grow and grow and grow like your hair? It's still on your fucking head, and your beard can grow long, but your eyebrows and your eyelashes don't really do that shit, yo. Your eyelashes normally grow to a certain length and then stop growing, and like some motherfuckers do, like them you know, them people who got a lot of caveman Neanderthal in their ass, and they backs just hairy as shit, chest all hairy, eyebrows just big, but you damn near a beast. You know what I'm saying? But most people ain't like that on average. Like your eyelashes and your eyebrows don't grow as long, even though it's still on your fucking head with your hair and everything. It's just, I don't know. Our shit works weird as shit, yeah. You're bald. What the fuck you mean you're bald? You cut your dreads off, bro? This nigga. That's crazy, son. How long you had your hair? Goddamn. We had that shit for decades. That shit was long as hell too. I keep thinking about cutting my shit off, man, but I don't know. Tell myself I'm gonna do that shit when I'm 40. That shit right around the corner, bruh. I might cut it when I'm 40. But my head shape funny, yo. My hairline all fucked up. And I got a funny ass peanut shaped head. Like my hair covers that shit up, son. That's why you went ahead and cut your shit, huh? Like I'm 40. Let me go ahead and give up this Rastaness. I have a career now. I know one of my homeboys, one of my best friends, your white boy. This motherfucker had some long ass hair. He looked like fucking Jesus, bro. And then he got a job working at goddamn Francis Marion. He's a administrative assistant or something like that. I think he probably changed titles now, but when he first started at Francis Marion, he was administrative assistant. And he cut his fucking hair off. I'm like, yo, it just look weird when people everybody cut their hair, yo. Motherfuckers get so used to seeing you looking a certain way. Then it get hard to fucking recognize yourself after a while. Like, shit. I cut mine once and then grew it back. Like, I'm like, fuck that, I ain't cutting no more. Cause my shit grows super slow. Man, I got one cousin, but his hair be long as mine in like 2 years. He'll grow this shit in like 2 years, no problem. Your motherfucking hair grow fast as shit, bro. I'm like, damn, nigga. And that's why he don't mind cutting his hair. He'll grow that shit for like a year or two, chop that bitch off, rock a fro, rock some waves, all different kind of hairstyles, and just lock that shit up, grow that shit back. 2 years, that shit be fucking long as shit again. Like, damn, bro. Alright. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try to finish the skin tone on this painting. I wanna work some more around the dreads, and then I gotta do this arm right here. Get those skin tones looking a little better. Get the veins in the arm. I should definitely be able to just get what I want done on here. And once I, like I say, once I get this portion done, it'll have 2 layers of paint on the skin tone. Then I'm gonna set this paint to the side, and then I'll put an underpainting on the next canvas. And then after I do that, I actually I had a photo shoot yesterday, and I can go print out I could go print out another. I think I'm gonna do this one right here. So. Now, 2020 gonna be a good ass year, yo. I swear. Oh man. All right, guys. Let's get some this painting done. Oh, so what I was listening to start with, this is Carl Sagan's 1994 lost lecture, The Age of Exploration.
That I have. From scientific perspective, evolves from debates with that character. So let me just try to outline a few examples. Shortly after Copernicus, there were people who said, okay, maybe we're not at the center of the universe, maybe the sun is, but we're close to the sun. Look, we're almost at the sun. So we're almost at the center of the universe. It's almost as good. Well, was the sun at the center of the universe, which we can loosely translate as at the center of the Milky Way galaxy?
Yeah,
well, the answer is no.
No, we're not. We're kind of to the edge.
We are not at the center.
No, it's not.
Where it looks important, or at least well lit. Instead, we're in, or at least near, an obscure spiral arm 30,000 light years from the center of the Milky Way galaxy, in the galactic boondocks.
And that's what makes everything so fascinating too, is like just in our universe, which is a collection of solar systems. So within our spiral galaxy universe, and then our solar system, that shit ain't nowhere near the fucking center. And for a long time, everybody's like, we're the center of everything. You're not. Well, we're close to the sun, so we're almost the center of everything. No, you're not. No, we're a little insignificant speck way to the outside edge of this big ass spiral galaxy. It's like, we don't really mean shit. And we just got here by happenstance, you know? The conditions were just right that we can exist. And it's by chance. And that is fucking amazing. That shit is amazing. You guys never listened to shit like this as a kid? And I don't know, like I said, I was really, really brought up in a religious family, yo. Like, my family is uber, super, super religious. But then you tell me to watch PBS and Sesame Street and fucking Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and then these science shows come on, and then I hear this stuff. But then you want me to believe both of this shit. You want me to believe in the science and in this Bible, and them shits don't fucking go hand in hand. And this shit right here just always seems more interesting and logical.
If you were an intergalactic traveler coming into the Milky Way, what would you think of someone who said, "Excuse me, Captain, that's the center of the Milky Way, it's true, but count out spiral arms with me. See, there's one, there's another one really big and beautiful, there's another one. Then over there you see that somewhat obscure spiral arm? Well, don't look exactly in it, but just a little out of it. See over there? I know it's hard to see. Take a closer look, right there. No, not that one. That one, see? Yeah. The guys who live on that one say they're at the center of the universe, and the entire universe is made for their benefit. What would you think of those guys? And then suppose you had the information. There's not one soul on that planet who thinks otherwise. Every one of them thinks they're at the center of the universe. Then there was a moment when it was thought, well, at least we're in the only galaxy. But no, that's not the case. Not only are there other galaxies, there may be as many as 100 billion of them. Then there was a moment when the Hubble flow was discovered, when it was found that the galaxies are all running away from us, the more distant galaxies running away the faster, as if we had committed some dreadful cosmic social blunder. When there were people who breathed a sigh of relief, this was in the 20s of this century. Look, we're at the center. Our galaxy, at least, we're not at the center of our galaxy, okay, but our galaxy is at the center of the entire universe. And this is based upon a serious misapprehension.
So we got that Hubble telescope.
There is no center to the universe, at least in ordinary three-dimensional space. And astronomers in any one of these galaxies would see all the others running away from them in the same way that we do. Then there was, for a long time, all through my growing up in undergraduate and graduate school career, the statement, there are no other planets. It was always, that is, in no other solar system. There was always a nearby star that was suspected to have planets, and it never did. Barnard's star was, for a long time, a leading hope. And if there are no other planets, if life has to arise on planets, then there's no other life, and there's no other intelligence, and so in that sense, we're at the center of the universe. Well, one of the things about the age we live in, last 15 years, is that this chauvinism is in the process of teetering and collapsing. Because we find that more than half of the nearby young sun-like stars have circumstellar disks of gas and dust extremely like what has been deduced for the birthing ground of the planets in our solar system, the key datum being that the orbital planes of the planets are very largely coplanar. And this was, by the way, something that Isaac Newton, no less, thought he could deduce the hand of God from. That is, God took each planet and threw it in the initial condition, all in the same plane. But Kant and Laplace independently knew better, and they used nothing more than Newtonian physics. Newton had just missed it. That the conservation of angular momentum meant that an irregular spinning, contracting cloud would collapse into a disk, and the planetary formation would occur in the disk, and therefore you had to have, collisions aside, coplanarity of the orbits of the planets. Not only are there amazingly numerous such circumstellar disks, but we now have the first bona fide extrasolar planetary system going around a star that must be at the bottom of the list of potential candidates that anyone would have imagined, a pulsar named B1257 plus 12. This particular pulsar is something like the size of the Cornell campus. It's something like an atomic nucleus the size of the Cornell campus, spinning at 10,000 RPM, 10,000 revolutions per minute. It's a supernova remnant. There was a colossal catastrophe that blew off most of the mass of that star.
No, I want to do first.
And going around it are at least 3 planets, 2 roughly Earth-like mass, 1 roughly lunar mass, a little in closer than Mercury, Venus, and the Earth. And whether these planets survived the supernova explosion or formed recently out of the supernova debris, whichever it is, the processes which lead to planets look to be a very broad and general application. And the technology is now improving so that in the next 10, 20, 30 years, in other words, in the lifetime of most of the students in this audience, we ought to have completed comprehensive surveys of the nearest few hundred stars, maybe much more than that, to see what planetary systems they have. So this chauvinism, I think we can also chalk off. Now, there's been the view that if there's nothing special about us in space, maybe there's something special about us in time. We've been put here by the Creator to take care of things. Stewardship is the very engaging word that is often used. Who knows what would happen to the environment without us? So we have an obligation to make sure everything goes as God would have wished it. The only trouble with this idea, well, there are several, but for me, the principal trouble with this idea is that 99.998% of the lifetime of the universe from its beginning to now was over before any human appeared on the scene. So if we are the caretakers, where have we been for most of the time we're supposed to be doing our job? We have been terribly lax. I could see that the chief gardener might be very annoyed with us, which in turn might explain a great deal. We could not have been put here as caretakers because we have not been taking care. A, because we weren't here, and B, because when we have been here, we haven't been doing very well either. Then there was the view that if there is nothing special about our position in space or our position in time, there's something special about our motion. We have a privileged frame of reference. This was the classical absolute motion physics that every great physicist bought into until 1905. Albert Einstein, a keen critic of privilege in the social sphere, immediately mistrusted the contention that the planet we happen to live on was affixed to an imaginary frame of reference which had special merit with regard to the laws of nature, and instead asked what kind of physics would it be if you deduced the same laws of physics no matter what planet you lived on, what star you lived on. And that is one approach to special relativity, which is repeatedly confirmed and is the way the universe is put together. Another chauvinism biting the dust. Now, this is a set of what Annie Drian has called the great demotions. And there are people who find it very upsetting, who still long to be at the center. And one area where you can see the emotions not hidden but written out in clear is in special creation. The notion that we are the particular objects of the devotion of the creator of the universe, that we're different from the other animals, never mind plants, not just in degree but in kind. And you know the list. No one else has altruism, compassion. No other animal loves their young. Nobody else can foresee the future consequences of present actions. Nobody else has art or music. Nobody else can use tools. Nobody else can make tools. And this list, it goes on, is essentially agreed to by Plato, Aristotle, St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, Hobbes, Locke, all the great figures in philosophy, with the single exception of David Hume, hats off to him, bought into by all scientists, including highly skeptical ones up until the year 1859, bought into, of course, by all the religious leaders of at least the Western religions, especially the Judeo-Christian Islamic religion. And in 1859, Charles Darwin made the first and heroic effort at pricking this balloon, showing that one species could in fact evolve by absolutely natural processes without anything foreordained from another species. And then when he got up the courage, it took a great deal of it, more than a decade later, he published his second book on the subject, suggesting not only does it apply to lots of species, but us too. We and the chimps have a common ancestor. They're our cousins. This contention really makes a lot of people upset. Have you been to a zoo lately? Have you looked at what a chimpanzee does? Maybe you're related to chimps, buddy, but I'm not. Well, we can learn about chimp behavior in zoos about as well as we can learn about human behavior in jails. And for exactly the same reasons. they don't bring out the best in us. But when people like Jane Goodall devote themselves to observing chimpanzees in their natural habitats, the chimps get used to them. The chimps have no trouble recognizing after a while that the humans are somewhat inept chimps. Then we find very different behavior. And I can't resist telling the story of Geza Teleki, a anthropologist and animal behaviorist who wished to learn chimpanzee technology, particularly the termite fishing industry, in which they are adept. And so he apprenticed himself for 9 months to a chimp named Leakey, who was expert. Now, the chimpanzee termite fishing industry goes as follows. You find a reed, not any kind of reed, the right kind of reed. You strip it of supernumerary branches, feel that it's right, and then go to the enormous termite mound. Now, each night, the termites cover over the entrances to their nests. The chimp takes one look, scratches away 2-3 places where the entryways have been walled up, takes the reed or grass stem, in one deft motion, puts it down into the termite mound, gives a few twists, carefully pulls it out. The thing is covered with termites. The chimp goes, dum, 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 and here's a good source of protein. Now, if a human were dropped down in this same place and had a need of protein, this source is unavailable to humans. Teleki, spending full time on this problem for months, could A, not break off the right kind of reed, in fact had to use the leftovers that chimps had picked out, could not after 9 months find the openings to the aperture that the chimp takes one look at and opens up. Could not put it down deftly, would do that and the thing would come out accordioned. Could not wiggle it enticingly to get the termites on, and could not withdraw it without scraping off almost all the termites. At the end of 9 months, he'd come up with 1 termite per. Chimps know how to do stuff. And how do young chimps know to do what Geza Teleki did not learn how to do? They were apprenticed for years. By the way, in Teleki's wonderful paper, in the acknowledgments, he thanks his patient tutor and apologizes for his failures because they are not the fault of the being he was apprenticed to. It's just humans aren't very good at this stuff. There is, in fact, a bonobo, a kind of chimp, who lives in Atlanta, who not only knows how to use stone tools, but knows how to make stone tools. This source of human pride is, again, misplaced. Now, of course, there are differences between chimps and us, and we have electric light bulbs, and police cars, and CD players, and nuclear weapons, and all sorts of things that chimps don't have. But we can't say that they don't have any technology. And when it became possible in the late 19th century to do DNA-based sequencing, you could get a quantitative measure of the relationship between humans and chimps. And it turns out that the two species share 99.6% of their active genes. So One way to look at that is 0.4% is a much larger number than we had guessed. And another way to look at that is, you want to know about us? Take a look at chimps. There's a lot there to learn. In any case, the idea of special creation is really an idea for another time. If nothing else but the molecular biological evidence were available, it would be very clear that there is nothing in us that is qualitatively different from our nearest chimpanzee relatives. That then takes us to the present stands where these great chauvinism battles are taking place. One is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. We have not found life, much less intelligence, anywhere else yet. We send spacecraft to other planets to look for life. We construct large radio telescopes and listen if anyone is sending us a message lately. Both of these activities have led to occasional tantalizing data, but none of it of a sufficient quality to say that we've detected life or intelligence elsewhere. In our ignorance, the geocentrists find hope. They confuse absence of evidence with evidence of absence. You haven't found life elsewhere? There isn't any. We're the only living creatures on the planet, in the universe, on this planet. You haven't found intelligence elsewhere? There isn't any elsewhere. It's only here. We are at the center of the intellectual cosmos. And while I could give you what I consider to be a strong plausibility argument why this conceit is also erroneous, it's only fair to say that nobody knows the answer to this issue. We have not found life or intelligence elsewhere. We're in the course of looking. Maybe we will find it tomorrow. Maybe it will take centuries. Maybe we will never find it. And all we have to do is keep an open mind. There's no other approach. You don't have to make up your mind in the absence of evidence. And then finally, there is a new and, to my mind, bizarre field for this debate, something called the anthropic principle, which it would be much better called the anthropocentric principle, which comes in strong, weak, and various shades of middling flavors. The weak anthropic principle says, if the laws of nature and the fundamental constants of nature were significantly different, then the paths which led to us would have been different and we wouldn't be here. That is unexceptionable, certainly true. No problem. But then there is a strong anthropic principle which, to my mind, is dangerously close to the following argument. We would not be here if the laws of nature and the values of the physical constants were other than they are. Therefore, the laws of nature and the physical constants are as they are in order for the universe to produce us. God had us in mind at the time the universe was made, and here we are back at the center of the universe again. There are many things which can be said about this, including the point that Philip Morrison, among others, has made, that who has traced through what other laws of nature and physical constants will lead to the functional equivalence of life and intelligence. It's impossible to do. You can also argue against it that it is not very vulnerable to experimental investigation. But I would just like to point out that there's something telling about calling it the anthropic principle, because the same laws of nature and the same physical constants are required to make a rock as to make a person. Why is it not called the lithic principle? So there's a strong and weak lithic principle. And in the strong lithic principle, the laws of nature and the physical constants are as they are, so rocks could come into being. Not nearly as satisfying, right? But if rocks could philosophize, I bet you we would hear nothing of the anthropic principle, and at the cutting edge of rock philosophy would be the lithic principle. I have only 2 slides. If I can show the first one, please. This is a absolutely typical astronomical photograph of what's called a star field. Now, focus is important, please. Oh, went right through it. That's pretty good. Ooh, back a little. Yep, good. Now, take a look up here. What you are looking at is some, I'm not sure, 10,000 stars, something like that. One in front of another, so that they seem so closely packed that from a greater distance or with a smaller aperture telescope, you could not even tell they are individual stars. This is what the Milky Way is. It's stars in line of sight so closely packed that it looks like a continuum of light. Many of these stars are more or less like the sun. As I was saying before, it now looks as if planets are a frequent, if not invariable, accompaniment of star formation. And again, I ask you to consider the contention that the only life and intelligence in the universe is, let's say, that dot. No, not that one. That one right there. See? That's it. Nowhere else. Maybe hard to extrapolate from one example, and one example is all we have, but this is so resonant with the other human conceits I tried to outline in the Great Demotions that I am suspicious of it for that reason alone. Lights, please. I want to conclude with one of the many psychic rewards that planetary exploration has brought to me. As Ed Stone outlined in his talk this morning, there was a moment when the 2 Voyager spacecraft had completed their close-up reconnaissances of the Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune systems. No other planets that we were going to rendezvous with further out in the solar system. It was now possible to turn the cameras close to the sun, and if the worst happened and we burnt out the optics, so what? There was nothing else we were going to photograph. Because I had wanted, from the time of the Saturn encounter, to take a picture of the Earth from that remote vantage point. And at the same time, I want us to get to Uranus and Neptune and see what was there, and the spacecraft phenomenally outperformed its design specifications, and the bulk of our knowledge of the outer solar system has come because JPL did such a brilliant job with these extraordinary spacecraft coming in on time, under cost, and vastly...
JPL? What is that? Jet Propulsion Logistics?
Of their design.
Eddie.
Anyway, as Ed well knows, it was by no means easy, even though the downside was almost nil.
What does JPL stand for?
Back,
what company is that?
And it required an actual intervention by the NASA administrator to get it done. But it was done. Now, it was clear that because the picture, the Voyager 1 picture, was taken from beyond the orbit of Neptune, that the Earth would appear only as a single picture element, a single pixel. You would not even see continents. You could not tell any detail. I still thought it would be useful to do, in the same sense that the great frame-filling Apollo 17 picture of the whole Earth has become a kind of icon of our age, because it said something very powerful to us, including the fact that from that perspective, national boundaries were not in evidence. Well, these pictures were taken in part due to the excellent estimates of exposure times by Carolyn Porco, and I'd like to show you in the last slide. To the motion, the Earth momentarily, no chauvinistic implications, this is just foreground optics, the Earth in a sunbeam. Wait a little bit and it's not in the sunbeam. So there it is. I mean, take a look. It's a pale blue dot. That's us. That's home. That's where we are. On it, everybody you love, everybody you know, everybody you've ever heard of, lived out their days there. The aggregate of all our joy and suffering, thousands of confident ideologies, religions, economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilizations, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every hopeful child, every mother and father, every inventor and explorer, every revered teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every uncorrupt politician too, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there. The Earth is a very small stage in a great cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, presidents and prime ministers, party leaders, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of the corner of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one part of the dot on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of another part of the dot. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe seem to me challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark, in our obscurity, in all this vastness. There is no hint that there's anyone who will come and save us from ourselves. That will happen only if we do it. It's been said that astronomy is a humbling experience, and I would add, character building. To me, this is one of many demonstrations through astronomy of the folly of human conceits. To me, this picture underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another, and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, for a great speech. I'm already looking forward to your 70th birthday. Professor Sagan will answer questions for a while. If there are microphones in the aisles, if you could come to the microphone, it will make it much easier. He'll field the questions himself.
Thank you, Dale. I'd be glad to answer questions on anything anything I've been talking about, or anything else that's on your mind. I don't promise to be able to answer everything, but I'd be glad to give it a shot. Professor James Henderson is not asking a question, but merely taking a picture. Yes, please.
Yes, please. We'd like to know two things. First one is, who said billions and billions?
That I can answer very quickly. It's someone named Johnny Carson. I never said it. I never, ever said
He's
it.
off the hook, everybody.
I mean, it's sort of like Humphrey Bogart never said, "Play it again, Sam." Nobody believes it. But
It's elementary, my dear Watson.
Say again?
It's elementary.
It's elementary, my dear Watson. Is another in the movies. He says it. Basil Rathbone says it, but in the Ark Times Oil books, he never says it. Yes, and your second.
Okay, so we also want to know, what, if any, one thing in particular would you have yourself be remembered by?
You know, I hate the one only kind of question. You know, what's your favorite scientist, or what's the greatest discovery in the history of the world? I don't know. I have to leave the decision about how I'm going to be remembered, which I hope will not have to be faced for some time, to others. But thanks very much for the question. Yes.
I was interested in your great demotions, and I certainly
Speak more into the mic.
I certainly, let's say, agree in most ways with what you say. Where among the great demotions would you fit in, or would you fit in at all, the appearance of consciousness among humans?
Yes, that's an important question. I'll repeat it because her voice, while lovely, is very soft.
What up?
The question is, what about the evolution of consciousness? Isn't this another of the conceits that only humans are conscious? I'm paraphrasing. But would I include that in the demotions? Annie Drian and I wrote a book called Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors, in which we tried systematically to look at each of these what I've called conceits. And I think the most startling thing we learned, or I'll speak for myself, that I learned in the course of doing that book, was how we kept getting it wrong on these issues. Now, consciousness has various meanings. If it means an awareness of the external world and modifying your behavior to take account of the external world, then I think microbes are conscious.
Plants are conscious in that way.
If you mean deep thoughts, like Bishop Berkeley's contention that nothing exists except what's in his mind, I'm with the microbes myself. You see, how do you know that I think any thoughts? Only because I happen to be communicating to you. You can't easily tell that I have philosophical thoughts by looking at me drinking this cup of water, right? So imagine that I was mute, that I could not communicate by speech or writing or anything else. Then how would you know if I had such thoughts? The evidence for not just the so-called higher apes, but running through the apes and the monkeys, to me is very persuasive that they have thoughts. Not only deep philosophical thoughts, but useful practical thoughts, like lying, like deceit, like planning to fool others, thinking about it far in advance. But let me just give one little image, which I like because it covers many different grounds. These are the results of work at the Arnhem colony in the Netherlands, where there's a large free roaming community of chimps. Males are testosterone riven and subject to raging hormonal imbalances. They get angry at each other and pick up rocks. They go quite a distance to get the rocks in order to confront the guy who they don't like and throw stones. The very act of going over there out of sight of the enemy to pick up the stones and then bring them back to throw the stones shows thinking ahead, understanding a goal and aware of yourself and the opposition. But the most interesting thing is it is common for female chimps, seeing the males burdened with their stones, to walk up to them and disarm them, pluck the stones out of their arms, open up their fingers and throw the stones away. And when the males in a huff gather them up, the females disarm them again. So not only do the males know what they have in mind, the females know what they have in mind. And that, to me, not only is consciousness, but a social arrangement I'd like to see more of in humans.
My question is, given all these demotions, what is your personal religion, or is there any type of God to you? Like, is there a purpose, given that we're just sitting on this speck in the middle of this sea of stars?
No, I don't want to duck any questions. And I'm not going to duck this one, even though I have high religious personages who are close friends of mine in this room. But let me ask you, what do you mean when you use the word God?
Well, I guess what my question, it's like, is there a purpose for, I mean, given all these demotions, why don't we just blow ourselves up?
Why don't we?
Yeah, what is our purpose? I mean,
Let me turn the question around. If we do blow ourselves up, does that disprove the existence of God?
No, I guess not.
I mean, it'll be a little late to make the discovery, but still.
Yeah. I guess what I'm asking is, since as we kind of make God almost go away in this, as as he, through these demotions, and I don't mean he, because who knows what God is, but
still saying it makes it sort of icky, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's tough.
We like it to be a he, don't we?
Yeah. We've been trained to think of it as a he. It seems that through the ages, humans have created a mythological framework that often involves some kind of higher spiritual powers. And as
every human culture has done that.
As that goes away, as we know more and more that, and it seems harder and harder to prove that anything might exist like that, where does that leave us?
On our own. Which to my mind is much more responsible than hoping that someone will save us from ourselves so we don't have to make our best efforts to do it ourselves. And if we're wrong, and there is someone who steps in and saves us, okay, that's all right. I'm for that, but we, hedged our bets. It's Pascal's bargain run backwards. I'll say another word. The word God covers an enormous range of different ideas, and you recognize that in the way you phrase the question. Running from an outsized, light-skinned male with a long white beard sitting in a throne in the sky and tallying the fall of every sparrow, for which there is no evidence. To my mind, if anybody has some, I sure would like to see it. To the kind of God that Einstein or Spinoza talked about, which is very close to the sum total of the laws of the universe. Now, it would be crazy to deny that there are laws in the universe. And if that's what you want to call God, then of course God exists. And there are all sorts of other nuances. There is, for example, the deist God that many of the founding fathers of this country believed in, although it is a secret whose name may not be spoken in some circles, a roi fainéant, a do-nothing king. The God who creates the universe and then retires, and to whom praying to is sort of pointless. He's not here. He went somewhere else. He had other things to do. Now that's also a God. So when you say, do you believe in God? If I say yes or if I say no, you have learned absolutely nothing.
I guess I'm asking you to define yours if you have one.
But why would we use a word so ambiguous that means so many different things?
It gives you freedom to define it.
It gives you freedom to seem to agree with someone else with whom you do not agree. It covers over differences. It makes for social lubrication. But it is not an aid to truth, in my view. And therefore, I think we need much sharper language when we ask these questions. Sorry to take so long in answering this, but this is an important issue.
Hi. Me and some of the other students here at Cornell were wondering about your house. Was it some kind of power plant or what?
Power plant.
What was it before it was your house?
Right. Good. I guess when I said I try to answer questions even that aren't related to what I talked about, I really let myself in for it. Okay. That is a study that Annie and I work in and we love. It was a long time ago the headquarters of the Cornell Sphinx Head Society, in which God knows what abominable rites were performed. But I can assure you, these days, it is extremely placid. And Annie says she's not so sure. Anyway, it's very benign, whatever its early history, which goes back to, I think, 1892. It also was once a sculpture studio of a remarkable Cornell professor, designer of nuclear accelerators, and sculptor par excellence named Bob Wilson. Yes?
Yeah. I want to know what your views were on astrology. I know it's a related science to astronomy.
On what?
On astrology, extrasensory
Astrology is a
perception.
hoax.
What, excuse me?
It's a hoax.
Hoax?
H-O-A-X.
So,
Motherfucker, I need to spell it, bitch.
What about documented proof from studies where ESP, clairvoyance, you told
Well, that's different. That's different, right? Right?
Okay, well, that's
astrology is different from ESP
okay.
and clairvoyance.
Sorry
right?
to confuse the two.
But
About
no, I'm happy to answer it. I just want to be clear.
extrasensory perception,
Right.
telekinesis, do they exist, and does everybody, do
Right.
certain individuals have it? And how did it arrive
If
into
it
society?
exists, it would have arrived by evolution, by natural selection, the same way as everything else. Well, what do we mean by extrasensory perception? There is a African freshwater fish that establishes static electric fields and then detects its prey by perturbations in the electric field. We can't do that at all. Doesn't correspond to any of our senses. Does this fish have ESP?
In a sense, yes, but okay.
If it does have ESP, is this mysterious? Is it a challenge to science? Or is it just another way of perceiving the world?
It's a different way of perceiving the world.
Yeah.
But
So, therefore, if there is ESP, I think the chances are excellent that that it can be well understood by science, but to the best of my knowledge, there isn't any ESP. Yes.
Hi, I'd like, first of all, to say that it must be a true privilege to be able to develop a career in something as stimulating, intellectual, and spiritual as astronomy. Now, my question to you is, what's your opinion on the use of animals in biomedical research?
On what?
The use of animals
in biomedical
animals.
Right. I have struggled greatly with this issue. In part because I have a graduate student, Peter Wilson, who holds my feet to the fire on this issue. For example, I have a 20-year-old leather jacket that I used to wear to Cornell that I don't wear anymore. I do wear it around the house, if truth be told. I am very conflicted on this issue. That gratuitous pain should not be inflicted on other animals, or for that matter, plants, I think is clear. And that animals should not be made to suffer for fairly trivial goals. The making of lipstick, for example, I think is clear. To argue, though, that animals should not be used in the pursuit of medicines and medical procedures that might save the lives of humans is not so clear to me. And Charles Darwin had just the same distinction. He was way ahead of his time in opposing gratuitous pain, but would also not argue that no animal experiments should be done. And I think if I had to explain, somehow it was my job to do so, to some people whose child was dying because a medical procedure was unavailable, which might very well have been available if animal experimentation had been performed, I don't know how I would do that justification. Now you might say to me that I'm putting humans higher than other animals. And where do I come off doing that, especially at the end of an evening where I've been decrying chauvinisms? This, to me, is like the argument that is sometimes, Dave Morrison mentioned it in his talk today. Why should we take any steps to save ourselves if an asteroid is going to hit the Earth, since asteroids have hit the Earth in the past? And, others have gone, so we might be here, so we'll go, so, whatever it is, the raccoons will have their chance, or the ants, or the sulfur oxidation state altering submarine worms will inherit the Earth. At this point, I have no difficulty in, since I happen to be, it's an accident of birth, a human being, to justify human beings trying to survive under sometimes trying circumstances. That's my judgment. I'm sure if, you know, I were a lizard up here, I would be talking about, yes, let's sacrifice the humans so we can get better medicine for the lizards. After all, I'm a lizard. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I'm a human. I'm not saying this as if I know what your point of view is, but I'm just trying to clarify how I think about it.
I'd first like to say happy birthday, Professor Sagan. I'm sorry I didn't get you a present. Now, there are various structures in the Andes and also formations and crops in northern England, which people say are results of extraterrestrial interference or appearances.
The plains of Nazca.
Yes.
N-A-Z-C-A.
I was just wondering about your views of this, whether or not we actually have been upon. And
yeah. Well, one way to look at this is, I mean, first of all, what is on them? Where did all this stuff about the plains of Nazca being somehow mysterious and extraterrestrial come from? It came from a guy named Erich von Daniken, a Swiss
Chariots of the
hotelier,
Gods,
who wrote a book called Chariots of the Gods, which became a worldwide bestseller, in which he argued as follows. On the plains of Nazca in Peru, there are large drawings. Some of them look like spiders, some look like turkeys, some are straight lines. Von Daniken concluded that the straight lines were airfields, and the other stuff was messages that doltish humans were instructed in carving in the
how many
desert of
self-portraits have I
Peru
done? Oh,
by
wow.
extraterrestrial
A
overseers.
lot, bro. A lot.
What's this about? We don't know how to draw big pictures
That is a good question.
without extraterrestrials telling us what to do. Some of those straight lines
How
are
many
6 inches
self-portraits
across.
have I done?
How big are the airplanes that land on those airfields? What are we to imagine? An interstellar spacecraft effortlessly crosses hundreds of thousands of light years. The cargo doors open, and out come little propeller-driven airplanes about that size, like my 3.5-year-old son plays with, and they land in Peru and tell people, we got toy airplanes, please make airports for us, and by the way, make a big turkey. This is silly. The common feature in all of von Daniken's fantasizing is that he sells our ancestors short. He goes to Egypt, he sees pyramids. Boy, those are big. How big are the constituent blocks? 100 tons. 100 tons, says von Daniken. I couldn't lift a block that weighed half that. Therefore, human beings are unable to lift blocks of that mass. Therefore, extraterrestrials did it, QED. But if he had read Herodotus, never mind archaeology, this Herodotus is written, you know, it's in English translation, it's in German translation. We have an idea about quarries and logs as rollers and rafts up the Nile and how humans could do it. We're perfectly capable of building things big, even those of us who lived a long time ago, even those of us with dark skin. People know how to build big. And,
wow, you just said that?
Visitation is required every time a naive observer can't figure out how something, that the straight lines were airfields. And
wow, he just gave the niggas some credit, yo. He gave niggas credit.
That goldfish humans.
That's crazy. A lot of people won't say that shit, yo.
In the desert of Peru by extraterrestrial overseers. Why? What's this about? We don't know how to draw big pictures without extraterrestrials telling us what to do. Some of those straight lines are 6 inches across. How big are the airplanes that land on those airfields? What are we to imagine? An interstellar spacecraft effortlessly crosses hundreds, thousands of light years. The cargo doors open, and out come little propeller-driven airplanes about that size, like my 3.5-year-old son plays with. And they land in Peru and tell people, we got toy airplanes, please make airports for us. And by the way, make a big turkey. This is silly. The common feature in all of von Daniken's fantasizing is that he sells our ancestors short. He goes...
And that's the main thing that got me away from that ancient astronaut theory, because I used to love that shit, ancient aliens and all that shit, man. But then, like you said, you just selling motherfuckers short. You're selling our ancestors short, saying that they could not, that mankind, humans, did not have the intellectual capability to construct all these wonderful edifices that they have. And then when you say ancestors, you know that the further you go back in time, the darker people get. Having light pale skin is a de-evolution that has happened over the past 6,000 years. So when you go back 10,000 years, 12,000 years, 14,000 years, people are dark. Nobody's black. The Sentinelese, them motherfuckers black. Them like the only black people. But most, even Africans, you just have a high level of melanin, which is brown. And most people are dark brown or middle brown. And so when you go back to these oldest pre-civilizations, ain't nobody was there but black and brown people, yo. And he actually acknowledges this. And that's why people don't want to put history so far back, because we understand that the further you go back, the darker the human race gets.
Egypt, he sees pyramids. Boy, those are big. How big are the constituent blocks? 100 tons, says von Daniken. I couldn't lift a block that weighed half that. Therefore, human beings are unable to lift blocks of that mass. Therefore, extraterrestrials did it, QED. But if he had read Herodotus, never mind archaeology, this Herodotus is written, it's in English translation, it's in German translation. We have an idea about quarries and logs as rollers and rafts up the Nile and how humans could do it. We're perfectly capable of building things big, even those of us who lived a long time ago, even those of us with dark skin. People know how to build big. And the idea of extraterrestrial visitation is required every time a naive observer can't figure out how something could be done is silly. The one possible positive aspect of von Daniken is that it might, in frustration, drive an occasional reader into archaeology.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. I'll be honest with you. A friend of mine, well, now an acquaintance of mine, sold me the idea that Steven Spielberg was going to be here, so that's why I came. But look, I'm really happy. Wait, I'm not done. I'm not done.
First I heard of it, I'm awfully sorry that you just...
I know, but I'm glad I came, because when you were doing all that thing about pointing out where Earth is and how little we are compared to the universe, wouldn't it be easier for man, women, I'm using man in general. Humans,
yeah.
I'm sorry, okay. For humans to think that we're not the center of the universe, if we have all this now data, it would be, it's easier. Now, why can't we believe, the challenge now is to think that we are in some way, and somehow, the center of the universe in some kind of way, not physically, not intellectually, but somehow I don't want to make it like a purpose, but some...
Yes, you do.
Okay, it's a purpose. But no, but you know what? It's now easier for us to believe. Okay, it's easier, we can put our mind at rest. But somehow, aren't we...
This dude don't know what the fuck you trying to say.
Closing our mind?
Aren't we closing our mind?
By not saying that we're not in some way the center of the universe.
But imagine that you're an octopus.
Okay. Okay, wait. I got it. Wait. What about organisms are not at the center of the universe? Okay, I'll change it. Humans, because we can communicate and understand each other. I'm just saying because but what I'm saying, your organisms.
My mind is open. You come up with evidence we're at the center of the universe, I will gladly confess defeat.
Not now, but.
Hello. First of all, I'd like to say I'm glad I didn't get to ask my first question about God. And I left it to him. But my second question, which might be oversimplified, is if every matter has an antimatter, and the Big Bang Theory created the universe, which is supposedly the matter, where is the antimatter in the Big Bang Theory?
There is quite sophisticated cosmological speculation and theory on this. Clearly, if there's an excess of one over the other, and the universe is well mixed, then since matter and antimatter annihilate each other, whichever had a my good friend, the emeritus everything, the emeritus dismisser, suggests that it's time to come to an end. Let me take, Dale, if I may, one or two more questions, and then I'll stop.
Do you think that we're now as demoted as we can get, or
No.
do you think that can you see what further humiliations can you see for us in the near future?
Dr. Wing asked, what further demotions, humiliations do I foresee for us? You see, the idea that our sense of self
creating beautiful art and listening to discussions about the cosmos and if there is such a thing as a god, that's boring as fuck. Nobody wants to hear this shit. Nobody wants to see this shit. Where are all the bitches twerking? Where are all the fights and people yelling World Star? That's what I want to see.
worth comes not from anything that we've done, not from anything worthy, but by an accident of birth is where the crux of the humiliation is, in my opinion.
Boy, I'm about to get on that Titanfall too, boy. How long have been here? 2 hours? Well, I'm right at 2 hours. Is it lunchtime yet? Because I kind of skipped breakfast this morning.
Those of us
yeah, it ain't nothing but 11 o'clock.
For us to be important.
But I've been killing that Titanfall lately, homie. I'm like on level...
Important. We should make
like 30 something.
Easily understandable.
I got all the Titans unlocked.
And
got most of the guns and shit unlocked.
Species, and then set out.
Now I'm just trying to get my gun game up in that shit, yo.
Give us the confidence that we soar.
I got the one perk unlocked where. So on my pilot, I use the fucking grapple, cause everybody, well not everybody, most motherfuckers use that hanging shit. But I use the grapple, and now I got the fucking the one perk where if you jump and you aim your gun while you're in the air, that shit makes you fucking hover for a second. So I got that shit unlocked, and then I got the ability to shoot while you're running and sprint, yo. So you sprint across the map, bah, still busting that catch, yo. And my Titan, I went back to the first Titan, yo, the Ion. I just used Ion, yo. And try to get the hang of that one real good. And I don't know, y'all. I've been playing that shit hard body like all week. all week, bro. I'm going in on that Titanfall. Alright. So got this second layer of paint done. Like I say, I'm leaving off my tattoos on this next series of paintings. It's weird why I want to do it. Just to me personally, it just looks nicer. Because I'm kind of ugly, so when I paint myself, I just try to make myself look as handsome as I possibly can. And then like I have this love-hate relationship with my tattoos, so I do actually like seeing myself without tattoos. Shit looks weird, yo, not having the tattoos on there. And how many self-portraits have I done? So there's 5 just in this room alone. There's 5 paintings of myself in here. There's 1, at least 2 in the room next door. That's 7. I got 3 in the guest bedroom, so that's already 10. And then there's 2 in the reader series, so that's 12. And the Down and Out one, that's 13. Then there's 3 in the Complex Ion series, so that's 16. And I probably did like another 1 or 2 paintings of myself. Probably did like anywhere from like 18 to 20 paintings of myself, yo. Over the years. I use myself a lot as a model. And I'm going to have 1 more. Like after I finish this one, this is going to be a 3-part series. Another just self-portrait trilogy of myself. And so I'm not exactly sure what the next one is going to be, but it's gonna be another painting of me. It might be full frontal. You know what I'm saying? I'm not playing. Shit right here looking good though. So who else has Titanfall, yo? It's free. You got PlayStation Plus, yo? You got PlayStation Plus, yo. Titanfall is free, son. Just go ahead and get the freebie game. I'm already at 2 hours this morning. There's a really good chance that I can come back up in here later on today because it's still kind of early. But this is what I'll be working on next. Try to get the first layer of paint on this canvas. Photos. Oh, I still need to work on that drawing too. Shit, I keep forgetting about that thing actually. Definitely need to get to that though. I might work on that tomorrow. I can probably knock that drawing stuff out in like a couple hours. Yeah, the shadow on their thigh, like how the slats on the table are making those 3 shadows on their leg, that's going to be so fun to paint. And all the graffiti on the chalk wall, of course I'm going to change up all the words and stuff and make it say like some conspiracy type shit like 9/11 was an inside job. vaccines are poison, chemtrails are a reality, some crazy shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Epstein didn't kill himself. That's what I would put on there. Epstein didn't commit suicide. It's gonna be all like weird shit on the background instead of whatever it is willy-nilly stuff is back there. So I already have the image on the canvas, and the canvas is already toned. So now it's just ready for the first layer of paint to get up on here and get this thing started. That's the first image. So I took both of these pictures on the same day in the same location. These are just two different viewpoints of the same scene. So that one already has the underpainting on it. This one is ready for the underpainting. And currently working on this piece. So I have 1, 2, 3 projects currently going. I did a photo shoot yesterday. I have another photo that I can print out and get started, and that'll be a 4th project going. And then I have to add the next piece to this series of paintings. So keeping busy, still staying busy. I have this drawing to finish for this art installation, and then on the 6th of January I have to be a judge for the I'm not exactly sure what I'm a judge for. What is it again? So on the 6th of January, I will be judging the Regional High School Scholastics Art Competition from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Everhart Museum in Scranton. So that's the first event that I have for the new year, is actually judging a high school art contest, which is gonna be so fucking dope. I've never been asked to judge an art show before, so I guess people see my proficiency in art and would take my consideration or analysis or critique of younger artists' work as a standard to go by, which is fucking dope, because I'm gonna make these high school kids cry, yo. Swear to God. That shit is trash. That's trash. You're pretty good. You did. That's nice. That's hot. That shit is trash. You should definitely. Do you have any other talent? Can you play sports? Or an instrument or something? Because this art shit ain't for you. That's good. And that's how I'm gonna just be straight up with they ass, yo. I hope I find like one of those superstar students, and then I can just take the motherfuckers under my wing. Like, you know what? You're my protege. I can see it. You got the gift. Whatever that shit is, you got it. Let me help nurture and mature this shit. You know how you can do that? Come be my slave, my apprentice, and clean my brushes. And do my underpaintings for me. That's how you learn. You learn by putting in the work. It's like, no. Gotta put the work in first. Then you learn how to paint. But now, if I truly do see any young artists who have that exceptional talent, and high school is where it really starts to show. I mean, you're almost an adult, and you're, depending on if you're a junior or a senior, you know, you're about to leave home and go to college and hopefully like guide your career from there. So if these kids are actually, if they're high school students and they're entering into an art contest, they're already pretty serious about it. They enjoy doing art. I don't think it's, you know, it's not mandatory to be a part of these events. And so once again, I'll definitely be looking for pupils and proteges and throughout the contest and seeing it if anybody would want any kind of extra mentorship or, you know, guidance or study lessons outside of what they receive in their regular art classes at school. Because the last year we did a Black History event and we had some high school students display pictures or portraits that they drew of influential African Americans that they learned about through that Black History Month, which are some of the same people, but they had a few, you know, rather untapped sources. And but looking at their drawings of these people, there were actually, I think it was like 13 or 14 students actually submitted art to be a part of the exhibit. And I can clearly remember like 2 of them just like jumping out like, yo, that's a good drawing. And then walk around like, that's another good drawing. Like 2 students had their shit. And for high school kids, it was nice. And I was like, yo, I should find these kids. Let them know they got the gift. But, let me see. All my brushes are clean. I got to a really good stopping point because I actually finished what I wanted to do on that canvas. I'm at a good starting point here. So let's go downstairs. I'm gonna get on some Titanfall with D1. I'm gonna stream that though, so we can still chill and talk about whatever, but I am gonna go play the game for a minute. I'll probably have some lunch, take a nap, and then after that I'll come back up here and I want to start getting some paint on this canvas today, because like I say, tomorrow I'll probably just do a lot of drawing and not painting. I do want to finish up the one drawing project that I'm working on. Also, like I said, I do have a photograph I can print out. I can probably get that printed and draw that up on the canvas too. Just have to decide like what size I'll put it on. I might put it on a 24 by 30 or something like that. I think these are 18 by 24s or but we'll see. Let me turn off everything in here. Carl Sagan. Man, it was brilliant. That's off, that's off, that's off, that's off. Brushes are clean. Alright guys, let's head downstairs. Like I say, in less than 5 minutes, I'm gonna shut this stream down, start the next stream right back up. You guys can hop right back in.